it becomes very important that as we look at this program approach, then we know the kind of results we want. A full, well-transformed human being. And as such, money then goes there. So that we shift from looking at how many chokes we are buying and we stop there and celebrate that, yes, chokes have been bought. We don't celebrate that, oh, now we have enough drugs in hospital, so things are okay. No, we take a step further and see whether actually what we are doing has transformed this particular human being.
The case of the 12% excise duty that has been imposed on data bundles is merely out of the failure of the OTT. That tax, which had been instituted about 3 or 4 years ago, failed, and we alerted the authorities then that it would fail, on top of being counterproductive, as you've correctly highlighted.
Of the population is actually made up of women who are in the workforce. Women suffered the largest impact of closures of businesses. A lot of the women are not having access to finance, and yet they are very good performers when it comes to payback. Policy benefits and incentives exist, but very few women have access to that information.
Extremely important that people take interest, keen interest in issues that arise out of the budget. It is extremely important that people understand the budget, internalize it, understand indeed, like my colleague has said, how do I take advantage of this budget? What are the opportunities that arise out of this budget? So that I can actually take advantage of the opportunities and seize the moment of those opportunities. But also they need to look at the other side of it. How do they ensure that the government is delivering the services that government has actually promised to deliver? Okay, especially at their level, at their locality. So they need to demand, for better services. They need to demand, from the people who are delivering the services, accountability.
In April this year, the President of Tanzania was here in Uganda, and the President of CNOC and Total. They were here to sign a number of agreements in relationship to the East African crude oil pipeline. The East African crude oil pipeline is the 1,444 kilometer long pipeline that will be taking oil from our fields in Hoima to the coast of Tanga in Tanzania. So in April, at the signing of these agreements, which included intergovernmental agreement between Uganda and Tanzania, host government agreement between Uganda and the companies that are going to transport oil, and then tariff and transportation agreement and a shareholding agreement. These agreements had a number of provisions and commitments which Uganda has to fulfill. And because the Uganda National Oil Company is Uganda's commercial arm, it's the one that will have the obligation to fulfill these conditions. And it turns out now, like I mentioned, some of the terms and conditions in those contracts would require an amendment of the Public Finance Management Act. And that's why we have this amendment coming up. But as civil society, we have developed our position and taken a stand that the fiscal arrangement as we have it at the moment is safe, and we don't have to tamper with it because of the risks we've seen in the past in terms of corruption, loss of revenue.
Low investment to human capital development. I concur with our colleagues, the development partners, that we need to scale up investment in human capital development. Uganda spends around 2.5% of its GDP on education, half the average of low-income countries, as well as the East African average. and 6.5% of GDP on health, nearly half the 2006 share of GDP. Consequently, completion rates have dwindled and catastrophic expenditure in health continues to prevail, associated with higher out-of-pocket. These outcomes have been worsened by COVID pandemic, with continued close of schools that nearly 11 million students Ugandans are out of school. We need to upscale our investment in human capital development.